Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. Welcome back for those of you joining us again. And I'm Ashley Cheeks, as Kathy noted, and I'm here today to talk about business plan strategies. And this is the part 2 from the part 1 from back in November, where we talked about the fundamentals of a business plan. Today, what we're going to do is really go through the content piece of it, which is going to be more around strategy and actually what to write and how to think about what to write when you're developing your business plan. For those of you that don't know already, make sure you visit bizforchrist.com for details on this morning's talk and then upcoming topics for the next several weeks. All resources will be given via one link, so don't worry about taking too many notes too furiously. We're going to have it all in one place for you so that you can find it handy later. So today, on the agenda, we're going to do a really quick recap from part 1, just reiterating what was said last time and reminding you of those fundamental tips. And then we'll talk about the strategy piece and really understanding what it means to be strategic with your content and how to think about it in a way that doesn't overwhelm you or freeze you, or if you've never gone to college before and you don't really know what it means to be strategic, we're going to break it down and make it simple. And then in the end, thinking about your strategy for your business in 2021, we're going to touch on a few things to remember, to look for, and to think about as you develop your strategy, so that you're looking for the right things that may impact your business or your business idea in the coming year. So the one place to go to for talks, information regarding today's talk and the one from back in November as well, www.writtensuccess.co/EFC. If you go to this one page, it'll have all the resources that I mentioned last time. Today's presentation, so you can have it all handy there for reference. So if you write nothing else down, this is the one link to write down. I'll leave it up there for just a second. So
let me just reiterate, it's on Carlos' page if they need to see it close up.
On bizforchrist.com?
No, on this Zoom link.
Oh.
If you see Carlos's PC, he's feeding just the screen.
So with that, first, let's go ahead and recap briefly. Just a few basics on the business plan process so that you don't get overwhelmed with the idea of writing a business plan if you've never done one before. All right, the very first thing to do before you write a word of anything on a piece of paper is just make sure that you understand what your goal is. Now, you can write a business plan purely for yourself just to map out your own strategy, or you can write a business plan that's designed to help you get funding or designed to help you sell somebody else on your idea. But when you know what that goal is going into it, it changes the tone and it changes how you approach the entire thing. So it's really important to get that clarified before you do anything else on paper with your business plan. Now, when it comes to actually developing your business plan, there's only 10 sections that you really need. There's a lot of templates out there that have a lot more than 10 sections, and every section that you add to it is more brain power and attention you're giving that may or may not be worth it. So if you stick to 10 core sections, which on this page, on the Written Success website, you'll actually be able to see those 10 sections simply, and I'll show you a screenshot in a moment of those 10 to remind you as well. But stick to those and you can't go wrong and you can't overcomplicate it or work too hard on the business plan you're working through. And then of course, last time I was here, we talked a bit more about those templates and about funding options. So using a template that is online, that is generic, just be careful that you're using one that makes sense for you, and don't ever be afraid to skip something that doesn't apply to your business. And it can be as simple as, hey, I don't have a mission statement. That's fine, move on from it. As long as you have the business idea, some marketing concepts, how you're going to get customers and keep them, how your sales are going to look, those are the bones of it. All that extra stuff can just be fluff that really detracts from the point of your business plan, which is just to get your idea clarified so that you can launch and grow your business. Now, on this page, on the writtensuccess.co page, let me go back for a second, there are templates there that, again, only have these 10 sections, so it literally makes it to where you can't put the wrong information in there, okay? All right, I'm going to go on into the next, the 10 core sections, yeah. And we're going to, you'll see those in a second. I'll flash them back up on the screen. Those 10 core sections that you have to remember, they are in the templates that are on the website, okay? And this presentation will be listed on the website as well. So definitely feel free to follow along, and let's go on to the next section here. So talking today about strategy, the strategy part of your business plan is really the most important part. Now, strategy is not a specific bone or a specific framework to follow. Instead, strategy is an approach. And when you take a strategic approach to certain sections of your business plan, that is what makes it a good one or one that's not so useful. So thinking about this, with only 30% of businesses surviving past that 10-year mark, which is not a lot, there's got to be something that somebody's not quite doing perfectly in their business over and over and over again. And whenever survey and study comes out that talks about this, they find there's always a myriad of factors, right? There's always all these reasons. It's cash, it's personnel, it's the economy. But there's a thread that runs through all of that. So for instance, a survey from just last year, Fundera partnered with CBI Insights, and they surveyed businesses that failed, okay? 17% of those businesses lacked a business model, which is kind of fundamental, I would say. Another 14% failed because they had poor marketing. Now that's relative and intangible, isn't it? What does that mean, poor marketing? Does that mean they were handing out paper flyers that didn't go to homes with people in them? Or did they have bad marketing campaigns? What does poor marketing even mean? Then there was a batch that had pricing and cost issues, 18% of them. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that they priced something at $100 when it cost them $200? Or does it mean that they sold something for $50 that they should have been selling for $10? We don't know, and they don't give you much to go on before that statistic. Then there's 14% that had a customer disconnect. I have no idea what that means. Does that mean that they spoke a different language than my business spoke? Does that mean that there was something that they didn't really want in my product or service? Did I have bad customer service? We don't really know. However, we do know there's always another way to do something. And we do know that when you look at the statistics for failure, it's almost always because they chose the wrong way for their particular business. Now, here's the problem. There's no magic formula for perfect business decisions. There's frameworks for better decisions, and there's ways to trial and error things. But the reality is your business is unique, and your business has nuances that you can't find somewhere in a template online that's going to give you all the answers. And that's why we have to get away from the idea that there's a wrong way to do anything. There's just either this works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, there's got to be another way to do it. Let's find that way. The business owners that can do that without emotion, without getting bogged down with, oh, I failed at this. No, there's just, this is the wrong way to do it. There's got to be another way. That mentality keeps them from falling in that 70% failure bucket. That's what puts them in the 30% success rate. So thinking about it this way, strategy, again, is not a specific approach. I love this quote from McKinsey. Strategy is a way of thinking. It's not a procedural exercise or a set of frameworks. It's not a black and white grid to follow. It's simply an approach. It's a way to think about it. So when you look at strategy as something to apply as you write your business plan and something to guide you as you think through decisions, it changes the way that your outcomes pull through. Your business plan simply is a place to document and to work through those strategic thinking exercises. It is not something that you can do wrong if you take this approach. You can't have a bad business plan if all you're doing is working out strategies. Now, strategic thinking is the act of simply going through the scenarios that are possible and picking one that's least terrible or that is most clearly positive, okay? And sometimes you're going to have a whole bunch of terrible options. Sometimes you're going to be thinking about marketing options that you hate. You don't have time for this one or money for this one, or you don't understand the technology for this one, and you have to pick the lesser of those options or the least painful of those options for your business. And that happens sometimes. But it's not that you're picking something right or wrong. It's trial and error. So going through the 10 sections briefly, just visually, again, they are on the site. Please don't feel like you have to write them down now, but I just want to highlight the higher strategy portions of your business plan. So the first 5 of the 10 core sections of your business plan to focus on. Which of these, if 50% of your business plan is high strategy content, pick one. Which one of these would you think would be the one that would have high strategy? Executive summary? Any other guesses? Market analysis. Okay. The one that's going to have the most in it is the market entry strategy, right? You're actually reporting out in that section, what is my strategy going to be? The prior sections and the other balance of your business plan, the 50% of your business plan that you're working on, is actually just gathering information. It really is essentially researching, just what is out there. And research is a scary word for some people too, and it shouldn't be, because it's just looking things up and then writing down what you find. It's just gathering, okay? Now in the next 5 sections, similar question. If this is the other half of your business plan, which ones might have the most strategy? I'll spare you the pain. All of these except for appendices, okay? This is essentially half of your business plan, is strategy. And what does that mean? That means that you are taking your decision-making process to paper and you're saying, I could do this, this, or this, and based on what is going to work for my business, and we'll talk about how to get to that in a second, I'm gonna go with this strategy, but it's actually mapping it out. There's a really unfortunate thing that happens in our world today where we are sold basically all the time. There's somebody trying to sell us something, trying to sell us a strategy or an approach or a product or a service, or you should advertise here, or you should put your money there. And then you end up going with either whoever's loudest, so they leave you alone, or whoever you understand, because everything else out there is confusing. And that doesn't help if it's not the right approach for your business. And that person telling you to buy this thing or do this thing or take this action may not know the best thing for your business. They're doing the best thing for their business, right? And you have to remember that. And it's hard to make that decision without some kind of strategic thinking behind what you're doing. So thinking about your business plan and thinking about the decisions you're going to make for your business in the end. This is the question you have to ask yourself over and over and over, no matter how old or young your business idea is or your operation is. So why are we doing it this way? Just ask yourself that question. I had a client who was on Yelp. He was on Yelp for 3 years. He was a brilliant business guy. He had run multiple companies before. He wasn't new to the block. But he was very much a gentleman that liked routine and that liked to know exactly how everything works and doesn't like to break things that aren't broken, right? The problem is he was pouring thousands of dollars into pay-per-click advertising with Yelp. He thought this is a good marketing platform. And I said, great, but you don't have a return on your investment. You can't tell me that it's making you money and you need more customers today. So can we talk about why you're on Yelp? And if it's a good solution, great, let's stay with it. But if it's not, let's see if there's another option. And he said, well, this is the way we've always done it. And so that's why we're doing it. And I don't really want to switch from Yelp. And I said, that's fine to have a preference for Yelp personally, to have that personal interest in that one thing that's comfortable to you. However,
a friend of mine spent $450,000 on Amazon to get $375,000 return.
Negative ROI. So, and $450,000 budget on Amazon. Geez. Okay, that's painful. This guy's like $3,000, but still, if it doesn't bring you back the investment, there's no reason to stay there unless there's a fundamental reason to stay there. But frankly, if it's not bringing in the money, then it probably isn't a good enough reason to stay there. Okay. Now to think about it differently, I said, listen, you might be on the right platform. This might be a fit for you. I'm not here to sell you away from what's comfortable. Let's just think about it a little bit strategically and make sure it's the right solution. And if it's not, let's find the right one. So what do you love about Yelp? He said, well, I have a dedicated account person. I said, okay, Jeff, well, that's a sales guy. So just know that, okay? His job is to keep you there. So which is fine. You like that hand support. He said, well, I don't need to have a website to advertise with them. And I like that. I said, okay. He said, I also like that, people can review me on there and stuff, and I can update my business hours there, and it's all just easy for me. I said, okay. And he said, it's got that pay-per-click advertising thing in there. I just put in the budget that I want, or I tell my sales guy how much I want to spend, and they just run it. I said, great. But remember that those dollars you're spending on advertising have not yet yielded you any income, so just remember that. But let's pretend like the bones of this is what you want in an ideal provider. One way to approach this is to say, who else is out there and what points about them do I care enough about that would make me switch? Okay. One of the simplest ways to do this is by making it numeric. 1 to 5 rating, right? An account person's worth 5 points to me, and having no website requirement is worth another 5 points. Yeah.
And what platform would you recommend?
dependent. I'm not a salesperson. I'd have to talk to you about your business and see what your needs are and what your customers need and what your competition is doing to strategize on what makes sense for your business. And that's part of the point. If I was selling Yelp, I'd tell you Yelp, whether it was really the right answer or not. And Yelp is good for some companies. So is Google. So is Amazon. I mean, it's just a matter of what's right for you though. And you have to find a neutral, unbiased party to help guide you through that, or be more strategic in your thinking so that you can help yourself towards the right answer.
You think first-time business owner should build his own website or his or her website first, or go with a company like Yelp?
Very, very dependent on your technical capabilities, what your startup is doing, and where your customers are supposed to interact with you. Some companies don't need a website, guys. Some companies do not need a website. Every web developer will lie to you and tell you that you do, and from their perspective, you do. From their honest, genuine perspective, you do. However, I've seen too many successful companies in very specific niches, not common, but some companies have no business being online. They should be in person. They're a person-to-person web provider. But that's rare, and that's part of the point, is it's very situational. You have to talk to somebody that's neutral. Try to get your advice from non-salespeople when you're looking for what to do next, okay? Now with Jeff in particular, I said, look, let's do some alternate searching, okay? For instance, we've got Yelp. Who else competes with Yelp? Who else can give you some of what you're looking for? Groupon has a similar platform. So does Yellow Pages, Google My Business. Google advertising even has the bones of what he had with Yelp. So, okay, let's put points to all of this. 1 through 5, keep it simple. Make this a 3-minute exercise and don't overthink it. Let's just see where the numbers land, okay? And yeah, the account person, the website, the review option, pay-per-click advertising, and then an other bucket, because there's always something else intrinsic or personal or something else that you can't, neutralize across all things, okay? So for him on Yelp, they lost 5 points on our little matrix because they weren't bringing in any leads. Now, is that their fault? Maybe not. Maybe the problem was that the campaign was set up with the sales guy in a way that just didn't make sense. There's a lot of factors to consider there, okay? So this is 1000% bird's eye, knee-jerk kind of an analysis. But there was a couple other factors, right? Groupon, all of his competitors were on it. You might think it's a bad thing. Depending on what it is, if your competitors are all on something, then it's probably working. And you probably want to get a piece of that, again, depending on your business. Some businesses, it's the opposite. If your competitors are there, just steer away and go where you can dedicate yourself to your customers and nobody's going to compete with you there. But for his case, the competitors being there was a very good thing for his business to see as a positive. It's working, they're spending money there, that means they're getting an ROI. We should consider doing the same thing. Now, Yellow Pages, he seems to think it was too hard to use, fine. And then Google My Business was recommended by somebody he trusted. Bert was like, hey, you should be on this one, that's great. There is something to be said for somebody else that knows your business and gives you a direct recommendation. Take that, it's worth it. It's definitely worth to give it points. Yeah.
I'm sorry, somebody takes your recommendation.
Somebody you trust, somebody that's giving you trusted advice.
Said, this is what you should try.
Right, right. But you don't take it blindly, right? It goes into the matrix of your strategic decision-making. You don't just run with what Bert says. You need to analyze it a little bit, be strategic, so that you're making a smart decision for your business in the end. Because if you only go by what everybody else is advising you, well, they're building your business, you're not, and you're stuck with the consequences. So you just want to be careful to know exactly what you're doing and why, and be comfortable with it inside and out, okay? So with Bert, we ended up going with Google My Business. We tested all of them for a trial period, which was a little painful, but you know what? It's worth that 2 weeks of agony of just verifying for sure this makes sense. And the reason why it's important is because when it's something marketing especially, if you can create instant income from that, you better pick the right avenue to get the most income out of it. Last week we heard about content marketing, and that was brilliant. And the beauty of it is that it's really powerful and it is important. And you should have some form of content marketing if you have a website, period. Now, the flip side to it is that you can add other paid advertisings for instant gratification, instant sales, if you do it carefully. You should do both things at the same time. But take longer, so that's why you need that dual side. So for him, we went to Google My Business. He loved it. He got all kinds of money. He was making 50%.
ROI.
Yeah, 50% ROI. Great. I mean, within a month, guys. Within a month, it was just tweaking it and changing.
Think about.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was the analysis and strategy approach to just why are we doing what we're doing? Can we do it different? And should we? And if he had gone to the end of the 2 weeks, I promised him, we'll go back to Yelp. And I'll just talk to your account guy and see if we can make this a little more optimized because something's not right. But in the end, he was happy with the transition. Point being, you're gonna face that kind of a thing on all aspects of your business from day one, from day -1. You're gonna face it with your entity decisions, marketing, payment processing, website hosting, you name it. I had a couple of clients come to me and say, Ashley, I need a website app or a mobile app for my website. I said, why? Because somebody told me I did. Okay, that doesn't mean that you do. And that's a really big deal to just decide. Is it strategically aligned to my end goal and purpose for my business? How does it help me get to that destination? If you can't answer those questions honestly to yourself and with, if not the app, then what else, right? What other alternative would get me to that same destination? Then you're not giving yourself the full due diligence to make sure you're making the right choices based on knowledge and not gut feeling and not what some other sales guy told you to do for your business, but what you genuinely know is right for your business. Yes.
So for a website,
Mhm.
if you're selling a product, you're gonna wanna have visualization as far as sizes, whatever else you might want. But if you have a service-related business, you don't so much need a website because you're providing a service which doesn't really have the choices for retail.
So I'll repeat that. You said that if it's a product-based business, it makes sense to have a web presence because you get to see the product.
Right.
And if it's a service, not so much a requirement to have that website.
Am I correct?
No, that's not a blanket truth. In fact, there's a lot of service. Oh, no, don't do it now.
No, later.
There's a
Thank
lot
you.
of service-based businesses that can't function only in person or that just. Awesome. That can't. So for instance, personal example, I run a business plan service myself. That's all that we do is business plans for people. It can be a tangible product, but it's digitally delivered. I have to have a website though, because I service people around the world. There's no way that a storefront or that not having a website would justify my need. I have to be online for me. Now, there's other providers that are local only, and they will go to the Chamber of Commerce and make flyers, and that works for them. They get the local audience they're looking for, but I'm looking for a global audience. So for me, it's a regional thing that dictates my need to be online. So it really does depend. And there are products. Have you ever done? I'm thinking about all of the ones that like, oh geez, the Avon equivalents today it begins with an R.
So, you talking about, Amway?
Like Amway. No, not Revlon. I know there's somebody listening to this. Like,
Like,
Mary Kay equivalent, yes. Where if you can do it all locally, you don't have to have a website. And it's product sales, right? You're essentially selling products and you don't have to have a website. Maybe you have something that you decide you're selling in person and you want to bring it online. You want to bring it to an Etsy store. You want to sell it on eBay. You can make that choice. You can do it multiple ways, which is the point. There's always another way to do something. You don't have to do it all online if that's not comfortable for you. You don't have to do it all offline if that doesn't work for you. You have to know what works for you, your business, and your goal. Because I'll tell you, everybody's different. There are some people that would never launch a business that wasn't digitally comprehensive. They would never do it. They don't think there's another way to do it. And for them, that might be the best way to do it, and that's fine.
like a flyer across the street, there's more than one way across the street.
There's more than one way to cross the street.
You can jaywalk, you can run, you can
Yes.
walk backwards, you can go to the stoplight, there's always a way.
There's
across
other
the
way-
street.
yes,
So
yes.
there's always another way to approach business.
Yes, and if you're crossing that street and you get flattened by a semi truck, just hit reset like it's Frogger and go back and figure out a different way across. That's safer, that's better. We were just talking a minute ago, Chris, about there is no such thing as failing in business, except you should expect to fail in business. But failure is a milestone. It's not a destination. You're going to fail over and over and over and over again. And that's uncomfortable for a lot of people to grasp, but it's a reality. And it's only a bad thing if you let that be the stopping point.
But how is that failure? How bad is that failure? Is the failure that you run out of business? that you can't
Well,
start?
that's the ultimate failure. Again, it's only a bad thing if you let that be your end. So if you fail at a, say you didn't make money 1 month, right? Maybe you had negative sales, or not negative sales, but maybe you didn't have any sales 1 month after a month of good sales. Does that mean you're now a failure? No, it means that whatever strategy you used that month
There's
was
another way.
not a good one. There's another way. Find a different strategy next month. Even if you keep going over and over. And frankly, I mean, let's think about some businessmen that have how many bankruptcies. You would call that a failure point, right? No, they didn't stop making businesses. You build another one. There's always another way to keep moving forward. You don't let that be your end.
So like in life, you get knocked down, you get back up.
Just like in life, you get knocked down, you get back up again. Yes, yes. And that's easy to say. I'm not taking the human element out of it. It's not that it's, your emotions tied to your business, whether you like it or not. And that's one of the most difficult things about strategy is trying to be as neutral and as unbiased as possible to really see what is the right thing to do for this business. Not what's only comfortable for me, like Yelp, but what else could be possibly good. And it's important to take those strategy steps.
Yes, another question. Do you know much about small business loans for like veterans? I'm retired Navy and I know.
Thank you for your service. And yes, there are veteran programs for small businesses for starting and growing loans and grants. Yes,
Absolutely,
absolutely.
they support that because I get fresh ideas. You're developing your strategy.
Mhm.
Are getting that loan.
And it depends what kind of business you have, as far as what programs are specifically available and best for you. And we can talk about that at the end of this to see maybe if there's something I can point in the direction of. All right, so thinking about part 3, and then we'll wrap this up. 2021. So there's going to be some unique factors this year, and there are every single year unique factors to consider. We're going to touch on just a few of them so that you have them top of mind as you think about your business plan and the areas you want to focus on as you're strategizing, because these are the things that are going to move this year. Whether you like it or not, they're going to be something you need to have top of mind. So the things that you need to be prepared to react to include tax and interest rate changes. So if you are a business owner that does anything that has trade involved in any part of your process, so that can be buying something from China. Say you make earrings and you sell them and you buy your earring backs from China. If the tax rate on your import, when you buy that to make all your jewelry, if that tax rate goes up, that affects your small business. You need to be prepared that that can happen. If you are a business set up as an LLC versus as a C Corp, you may find this year that the corporate tax rate goes through the roof. Be prepared that that may happen and you have to react to that. Okay, these are
Other classes for that?
other classes, but there's professional resources that you can use, legal people that you can look to, and don't we have resources?
We have,
Amanda? Corporate finance, Amanda, just talk to her about
she
it.
talks about bookkeeping, et
Talk about-
cetera.
That was, she did like that. I spoke with somebody recently that said, off the record, expect your corporate taxes to go up to 38% this year. And I was like, oh my God. But that's a big deal. That's a really big deal that you can't change it today unless you change your entity. But the point is, be aware of it, be looking for it, and be proactive about it. There's also the factor of in-person restrictions. There's also the fact that if you have anything that deals with people face-to-face, the volatility of how much face-to-face is allowed is going to be something that moves, and you may not be able to predict that or even control it, depending on what your business is. You just need to be proactively aware of it so that you can react appropriately. Then there's a competitive landscape. The reality is there's a lot of businesses that have gone under in the last year, a lot more than normal. And that changes who is actually available to you in terms of your customer base. Could be broader than normal. And it changes who you're competing with. Maybe you're competing now with more online businesses than you ever had to before because of what that, and watch for who is and isn't still on the playing field when it comes to your competitors. Now, the things that you can be a little bit more proactive about, I'm not, depending on what your business does for marketing today. So some people do all of their stuff on Facebook. Some people do all of their stuff on something like Yelp or Yellow Pages. If you're doing anything that involves social media at all, any platform, I don't care which platform it is, you have to be aware that we're looking at changes coming in the next year that are going to be implemented that can lower your effectiveness if you're doing paid advertising on socials, and can change who is on those socials that you care about. So if your customers are all flocking away from Facebook and you do nothing but connect with people on Facebook for your business, you need to have a plan B. Yeah.
What are the other venues that you see popping up?
The newest one that I've seen is Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
It's an audio only platform that it's like a podcast hybrid with, I guess you would say Facebook, and it runs on a feed system. It's app only, and people jump in there, and there's a lot of, it's brand new. It's actually kind of a big deal right now. So Clubhouse is one of them. I know that
So, yeah.
If you Google Clubhouse, watch the YouTube videos. It's an invite only thing right now. I'd be lying to totally say I know all about it, but I know enough about it to know that it's hot. It's hot at this right now. Businesses are loving it because you can basically, no, that's rabbit hole, that's rabbit hole. It's good, interesting, look into it. In addition to Facebook, if you're looking at what the other folks are doing with Google, and sometimes I so that you can pivot if that no longer becomes the best way to connect with your audience on those platforms. Yes.
Is that a really control person?
No, I mean, as a for instance, Google Ads changes their algorithm every, I don't know how many weeks or months, it's common. And whenever they do, everybody that advertises on their platform now has to change how they advertise because there's new rules and policies and restrictions, and I use this word in an exclamation point, so I got removed. It happens and you can't do anything about it. But if you're willing to look at other platforms that have similar, similar things to what you need, it can be less painful to deal with that because that's not your bread and butter. You've got another option and you can pivot away if you need to. And that's the point with Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all these apps that have all of these great, wonderful opportunities for businesses change their mind every so often. That makes it hard for businesses. Can you adapt? Sure, maybe. Or do you just pivot away at some point? And that's a decision you have to make for your business.
I'm just curious, why does Google do that? Is that must be almost a strategic decision, is that to reset it, have people scramble, what's the thing?
If more top of my mind than on research of any kind, when Google in particular does that, it's usually because they're re-indexing the websites and they're changing how much information is fresh and what they're basing information on. So when they say, okay, so there's all kinds of attention going to this type of content this week, we're going to make that content a priority, and anybody advertising that kind of content gets a bump. Okay, well, if I'm a business that would never advertise that kind of content and think video versus audio only versus certain types of colors, I mean, you name it, they've got something that varies with it. If you don't fit their buckets, they're going to deprioritize you. Or if your blog post isn't long enough, you're not going to get priority on their thing, even if your little blog answers exactly what your customers want to know. You have to fit their parameters for them to be happy with you. And that's every platform does that to a degree. And they're doing it to try to create quality content. They're doing it to try to create what does everybody want.
What you're saying is they're changing it based on what perceived relevance.
That's good.
Well,
That's good. No. Perceived relevance. Yes.
Trying to understand what you're saying.
That's really good. Yeah, that's actually really good.
That's why Carlos keeps me on.
But perceived relevance is that perceived, and you can continue pushing towards giving perceived relevant content, or maybe you find a different way to do it. I've seen a lot of businesses pivot away from digital or mostly digital, and they'll do meetups local on meetup.com. They'll just do a meetup group, and that's their audience. They only need 10 to 50 clients a month anyway. They'll just advertise locally and do an in-person thing because they were sick of fighting with ads. They just want to touch their customers. They just want to see them and know them and hear them without Google saying, well, that's going to cost you $50 to talk to that person or to show your content to that person. And again, some businesses need to be on digital 1000% the whole way through. And some businesses can get a little bit more hybrid with it. You just got to be strategic and decide what's best for your business. All right, now thinking about the platforms again, you need to look at alternates for 2021, just in case you need a plan B. What else is out there? And if you look up new social media platforms 2021, I promise you're going to find a whole bunch of them. There's new ones popping up all over the place. And there's some that are going to be decommissioned, bought out, acquired, shut down. It's changing rapidly. Financial assistance is also something that's continuing to evolve. There are some COVID relief loans and PPP and disaster relief such. They're also changing their rules every iteration of them. So you just need to be aware that those things that you think are available today, you'll say, oh, I'm not going to apply to that now, I'll apply to that later, may not be there later in the same form. The loans that are out now are not the same form that they were before. And then on the other hand, you have things like the legacy SBA 7A loans are now more broadly accessible to people as a response to what's happened to COVID. So one of the things that they're doing with their 7A program is they're making it 90% guaranteed instead of 70% guaranteed, which just means that it's easier for a bank to say yes to an SBA loan for somebody that's applying.
You said 7A loan?
Yes, an SBA 7A loan, usually for 350,000 or less is ideal. But yes,
SBA 7A loan.
SBA 7A, yes. They're still requiring 10 to 20% down.
Sorry?
What's that? Oh, they're still requiring a down payment similar to what they had before, 10 to 20% depending on your situation. And they're giving you, I believe it's an 8-month deferment on your first payment. So you can get your loan, get your funding, and they'll give you, almost 3/4 of a year before you have to start paying on that loan, which is new. That is a very COVID-related decision, which is great. So that is something, again, that may not be here in another month. So if you think you need something like that, just be aware that you need to watch those factors and make sure that if they change, you know about it. And then, of course, there's just the sector trends in consumer economy. Some people are not as open to doing things as others are in terms of if you have an in-person business. You may be a restaurant in one city that has no problem getting customers in your door. And in another city, that same restaurant would fail because nobody's going out in person. It's not happening. There's no way they're risking it. And the attitude is different. I'm in Houston, speaking in San Diego, and I can tell you right now, it's a very different climate when it comes to people in person here versus there. 1000% different, same business types, very, very different situation. So you just need to be aware of what happens if, and what are my customers expecting now, and how can I meet them where they are? How can I give them what they need, no matter what that is, even if it's different than what I really want to give them if it wasn't for current times. All right, so again, the link to the resources. This presentation will be put on the website at the end. Give me a little bit of time as soon as you're up here and I'll upload it there. thewrittensuccess.co/EFC. You'll have this week's PowerPoint presentation, last week's resources, and in general for the upcoming topics and discussions, make sure you visit bizforchrist.com to see what's up on the agenda. And thank you so much.
And now we'll open for questions.
That I'm not putting out, y'all don't know, it's not registered yet, but this is, I didn't tell you about what suggestion platform would you suggest or like to platform to advertise?
Tell me what do you mean by platform? Marketing or like for word of mouth? What we talked about before, you could do that. That's an example of one that doesn't need a website. You could do that manually. And if you're looking at trying to save on costs, first and foremost, I would do it offline. If you're willing to invest a little bit more, like $1,000 or more, we should talk about free websites. Get a free website, get a low-cost domain, and you can still do the whole thing for pretty inexpensive, but you don't have to be willing to do the digital marketing yourself. So it just depends on what your skill set is.
That's your number? It's at the bottom of the card. Okay, now, another question I have is, you just said that, oh, you ever heard of one-on-one advertisers in Entrepreneur Magazine? I seen an Entrepreneur Magazine called one-on-one, and it was like $99, and they were guaranteed 10,000 people to your website.
Oh, God. Okay, I don't know how much time do you have?
We're good.
Okay.
Can you answer that question?
Yes, so what was just asked was about, there's a website that says, we guarantee you, how many leads? 10,000 people to come to your website. Okay, the first strategy question to ask yourself is, what kind of people are coming? Okay, because if it's a bunch of 5-year-olds on a gaming app, do you want those clicks? Probably not. And they'll charge you either way, right? That advertising company is going to charge you for that 10,000 no matter do they speak English? Who are these people? Are they bots? No, honestly, this happens all the time. Be very careful with marketing guarantees. People don't like digital media companies because they say, well, we can't guarantee results. And that drives business owners crazy because well, then what am I paying for? I'm not paying to gamble with you. But what digital media companies are trying to say is we're going to trial and error for a few months until we find your audience and connect with them, which is a natural process that can be very expensive.
That's better.
And the quality can be better. I'm always leery of somebody that guarantees traffic if you can't control the quality of that traffic. If you can't control what kind of traffic, what individuals are you targeting for me? So be very careful of low dollar, high guarantee things in general. Logically, think about how valuable that would be for your business for 10,000 customers, right?
You mentioned a free website. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What was that all?
Yeah, there's different ways to get a free website. Oh man, I could rabbit hole.
Webs.com.
Webs.com was just said, okay, and there's, no, I only know of a few, and I do have a blog on it, actually. There's Wix has a free website maker, there's, actually Wix is cool because they not only have the free website you can build, and it's really a nice builder, WIX, Wix, but they also have a free logo maker built into it as well. So you can design a logo and have a website up in like 20 minutes. It's really snazzy looking, it's cool. So, but there's a lot of them, there's a lot of free website
But
builders.
did you say that you have to have $1,000 to get that free website?
No. No, the $1,000 I was referring to before was more, it's a global bucket. If you want to really push some advertising or pay for a guy to do your logo, that's perfect. Or, that's a very generic budget, but if you had an in-person business and you could throw $1,000 into it, there's a lot you can do with that because it's going to go further because you're more in control of it. You're not throwing money on, a Google campaign that's going to click your way out of that money in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. I'm just going to ask, do we have any questions from our participants at this time? But we appreciate everybody that's attended. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you, Ms. Ashley, again. And we're going to close in prayer. Here we go. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this time that we could be together, Lord. And I just thank you for each one of the participants here. And I thank you for all the wisdom that's been poured out to each one of us, Lord. And I just pray that you just guide us for the rest of this week, Lord, and going forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Come back next week. Next week we have, who do we have, Mr. Carlos? Mel Andrews, LLC. Come back next week. God bless. We'll send you the Zoom invite.
There is a